In 1961, when the Assamese-only language policy was announced, people felt a ground shift beneath their community. In the Barak Valley, Bengali was the majority language, and suddenly, schools were asked to remove all Bengali textbooks. Elders whispered that their children's future had been rewritten without their consent. And so, peaceful rallies formed at the Silchar railway station, hopeful that the government would listen. Instead, gunshots shattered the crowd, killing 11 unarmed protesters. That night, when a man returned from the protest, shaking, murmuring, they killed people for wanting to read in their own language. Even decades later, he still visits the memorial because he knows what was at stake. Not just a language, but the dignity and right of a community to exist without fear. This isn't just a distant problem or a scene from history books. Across our world, language has been used to draw lines in the sand. The Uyghurs in China, the Kurds in Turkey. These communities have faced oppression for merely speaking in their mother tongue. Catalan speakers have been fined, threatened, and denied service for speaking in their language. A professor was fined £601 at passport control for speaking Catalan. In Peru, Quechua-speaking families decided not to teach the language because in Spanish-dominated areas it meant exclusion and mockery. These stories remind us that language can grant us belonging, but just as quickly carve barriers that fuel isolation and conflict. But let's pause for a moment. Is language the only way we can truly connect as humans? What if we looked beyond words and discovered more fundamental forms of understanding? Long before alphabets and textbooks, humanity spoke in a different way, through images and expressions that needed no dictionaries. The power of visual and emotional communication is much more impactful than what you can imagine. Picture yourself lost in a country where you don't speak their language. Fear, frustration, and helplessness is definitely what you're going to feel. This actually happened to me. I got lost in a small town in Italy, and I had no idea how I was going to find my parents. All the announcements were in a different language, and I didn't speak Italian. The 9-year-old me was petrified, to say the least. Just then, an elderly man noticed me sitting alone. He walked over and said something in Italian, but soon realized that I didn't speak the language. So he just offered me a cookie. His eyes were kind and his smile was gentle, and I think that expression is what made the 9-year-old me know that I didn't have to worry about stranger danger. He just patted my shoulder reassuringly, and just like that, I didn't have to know Italian to know that I was safe. A child crying, two people reuniting, or just a look of empathy speaks to everyone, everywhere, often much more clearly than words. Travel back thousands of years to ancient Egypt, where hieroglyphics were commonly used pictorial symbols adorned on temple walls. These images weren't just pretty art. They were stories, laws, and prayers, accessible and understood by everyone. Fast forward to today's emojis, and you'll realize that our need for visual communication hasn't changed a bit. Isn't it fascinating how a simple heart or a smiley emoji can break through all language barriers and communicate instantly and universally? In Bihar, India, many women for generations were denied access to reading and writing. But did that stop them from communicating their pains, their lives, and their hopes? No. Through Madhubani art, which originated in the 14th century, these women filled their homes and villages with brilliant color and mesmerizing patterns. Their art wasn't just decoration. It was protest, celebration, and communication all rolled into one, allowing their voices to echo across cultures and centuries. And this need for visual communication is mirrored across cultures. In Africa, the tribes communicate via beadwork, masks, and often ceremonial scars and tattoos, all representing their relationships, status, and stories. In the Americas, the tribes devised a sign language to connect and cooperate without a spoken language. Isn't it remarkable how, when the will to connect is strong, humans always find a way? But what about the language we carry with us every day? Our faces. Charles Darwin, the famous naturalist, didn't just write about evolution. He studied how we express emotions, and he discovered that a smile, a frown, or a look of surprise means the same thing whether in Paris, Delhi, or the most remote Pacific island. He explained this in his book, The Expression of Emotions in Man and Animals, where he showed that facial expressions are built-in codes, shared, instinctive, and impossible to fake across cultures. Darwin explains that not just humans, but our entire ecosystem, including animals, understand each other because of facial cues and visual expressions. And we see this universal understanding in great global moments too. I think it's incredible how art, music, or just a simple gesture can connect people when nothing else seems to work. So, what does that really mean for us? Maybe we've become so dependent on spoken language that we forget the deeper ways we're all truly connected. What if we chose to focus on the art, the faces, the symbols, the expressions that every human understands? Just imagine the amount of misunderstandings that would soften if we stopped for a moment and chose to listen with our hearts and eyes just as much as our ears. Every painting, every ancient symbol, every expression someone makes, they're not just messages, they're invitations, they're bridges, they're ways of saying, I'm human, just like you. And wouldn't the world feel so much richer if we chose to look at the things that unite us rather than fearing and worrying about what sets us apart? Maybe moving beyond boundaries isn't about abandoning language at all. It's about remembering that language is only a small piece of a much bigger, much beautiful picture. If we are willing to truly look, truly listen, and truly feel, we'll realize that unity is right there, waiting for us, beyond words, beyond fear, and beyond every boundary we've created. Thank you.